this land of loud amplifiers, misfit guitars, and where he recorded albums like 1984 and OU 812, that I or my co-author, Chris Gill, would shoot the breeze with Eddie. As players and veteran guitar journalists, we spoke his language, and he knew that we'd have a clear understanding of who he was as a musician and a human being. So it's hardly surprising that the first thing that flashed through our minds when, on October 6, 2020, we heard the terrible news that he had died from cancer was of Eddie playing guitar and recording at the studio, as vital as a man can be. It wasn't possible that such a force of nature was gone, yet he was. When Edward Van Halen was alive, several books about him had already been published. Some were both informative and flattering, others not so much on either score. A couple focused on Eddie, the young inventive genius who early in his career seemed as if he could do no wrong. Others saw him as a star who was as emotionally fragile as he was confident on stage. Bandmate Sammy Hagar's account of their time together painted a darker picture of Ed, whom Hagar saw as gifted, brilliant, but also erratic and duplicitous. But each of the books missed the bigger picture while at the same time neglecting to convey who Ed was at his core or to capture his essence. Our intention with Eruption, Conversations with Eddie Van Halen, is to present for the first time a panoramic view of the man considered to be the most inventive guitarist since Jimi Hendrix, and perhaps the greatest rock player of all time. He was a unique phenomenon in the annals of pop music, a non-singing instrumentalist whose enormous talents and charisma made him the dominant force in a band that sold more than 80 million records worldwide. He also single-handedly changed the course of music for much of the 80s and 90s by reviving guitar-oriented music, whose primacy had been threatened by the synthesizer in new wave and the sleek orchestrations of disco. But Ed was more than just a guitarist whose radical approach to the instrument was so exciting, so other that it bordered on the magical. He was also a brilliant songwriter and a world-class inventor. And in his personal life, few things were more important than his parents, brother, wife, and son. Sadly, maybe inevitably, the smiling artist also struggled with his share of personal demons throughout much of his life and career. As a youngster, he was an immigrant child who, because he spoke no English, was the target of bullies. It was not difficult to see that this harrowing time was responsible for his lifelong debilitating social anxieties and insecurities. He was also the son of an alcoholic, and Ed struggled his entire life to tame his own addictions to alcohol, cocaine, and cigarettes. For more than 6 decades, both sides of Eddie Van Halen, the light and the shade, wrestled each other, creating an often unbearable amount of pressure that fueled his obsession with attaining greatness and caused him to periodically self-destruct. In this book, my co-author and I strive to illuminate how these contradictory sides of the man came together to create one of the greatest musical minds of the 20th century. How could a person who projected so much warmth and confidence on stage be beset by such demons? How could a man so totally disciplined from childhood, always brimming with creativity, throw so much of his life away on soul-crushing dependencies? We had our theories, but we didn't really need them, because during our hours with Ed, he always told the truth about himself. This was a man who was all too familiar with his soaring strengths and destructive weaknesses. Destructive not only to himself, but also of the people he loved, those who always supported him. In the following pages, we will take you on a tour of the dramatic arc of his complex and ultimately all too short life. This is a story of the remarkable rise of a great American artist, his excruciating fall, and his extraordinary